based on temperature.
Öl, Metall
I'm
hat
just gonna say
abgenommen,
euro
das ist
and
eine Schöpfmühle, die Gold und Silber in Mutterschaft.
Productivity specialization.
Das aber
Oh, like so which means like if
Inequality.
agriculture yeah.
Privatisierung auch.
Agriculture that depends on the temperature of each soil. Yeah. So I'm just gonna say mining and
Im Endeffekt
dann der
so this is actually our main answer.
But
But there's also societal traits and production. I think these are like productions, right?
ja, langfristige Faktoren.
Okay, that's societal production.
So,
Characteristics.
Sorry, colonial inheritance like depends on which country you work in. British, Spain,
Would we put it there, or is there anything based from the paper?
yes.
So that I would just tell like quote it.
aber trotzdem haben sie aber diesen
Like for example, the educational system, as it was set up during colonial, like not every colonial was gave the education. For example,
Which page again? Sorry?
oh, this one page
37.
37.
37 here. What exactly? No,
Here is the education system.
Oh, yeah. Around.
Und Education kannst du auch aufschreiben. Weil ich glaube, im Schnitt stand es in den Text, dass im Schnitt
In the
38 on the second page.
also Deutschland, Dänemark, haben sie im Schnitt.
Oh, I think your phone and
probably yeah. It has different
just
formats.
search the keywords. I'll search the keywords. Sorry.
Yeah. I was saying
What
like
again?
colonial.
Ja, genau. Also es gibt ja eigentlich die
Which page is it? Oh yeah. Oh.
Das Inequality.
I think that's
Like,
oh here. Number 1.2.
Page 13.
Ja, aber die haben uns im anderen Text genannt.
Well,
Das
maybe
ist
that
so
can
die
be,
wichtigste Art von
you
Bildung.
know,
Yeah.
like these are like maybe that can be
Oberschule und
yeah, agriculture and rice is like production, yes. So Euro just like Euro American. But then it doesn't.
Bildungsinitiative quasi einzubetten oder hast du ja auch nicht den Schritt aber du musst halt die Lehre haben. So ich erinnere mich an die haben halt so Fälle. Genau, das Schulsystem halt also wirklich scheiße. Also die sind wirklich aber wenn man so mit Dänemark oder Finnland oder so.
Yeah, what's wrong with the one city?
Ja, genau. Aber trotzdem ist gut.
Wenige Filme.
Ja,
Oh, but on the next page is
Sorry,
already say exceptionally so that is already actually like the type that we would divide it to, no? Like A, B, A except B and C, A and C. I think A is like as you say, A is overlap. So yeah. So it's like if we write one thing. Okay, now we have to answer what are the common characteristics.
Should you write it?
Yeah. What? Oh, sorry.
Just which places?
No, I'll try my second.
Should I write it in the same way?
Yeah,
No. Or
it's
do
like
like
a
societal
table.
traits?
I think it puts indigenous, but it puts strong mining and without strong mining.
Okay, so
Kind of like similar to the table 1.2, right?
Ich glaube, dass bei Privatisierung war es halt
then I
The Indo-American
Markt,
with
der sich
strong
schnell
and
skalieren
without
kann, aber
or
schnell
with
quasi zerfallen
Okay.
so.
Indigenous
Es kann halt
Indigenous as
Ja.
Und wenn es der einzige Sektor ist, den man quasi unterstützt, dann ist halt die anderen Sektoren ja nicht.
Aber trotzdem mal erstmal was praktisch normalisiert zwischen.
with
Ich glaube, das war unterschiedlich.
With strong mining export and without strong mining
Oder
export.
wenn du so
And then weak.
ja, weil dann können wir die so erklären.
Vielleicht nochmal wie
with and without.
Yeah, then we just answer.
Okay.
Das Geld fließt ins Ausland, aber
On
wird
top of
nicht
the paper
besteuert.
side.
Yeah, it's so
Und das ist ein Problem,
mining in.
Okay, please get ready and choose perhaps one person who will present your results.
Everybody wanna skip. Everybody knows the rest of all of this. So I'm just gonna say something and then you guys stop.
Okay, okay. Okay.
I just some people like
Yeah, like.
Oh, okay. Mining is.
Okay, I would say we start with the first group. That
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, that's good.
And present what you found. Okay, ready? Guys, you come up here front, the front.
Du bist als Spieler am Stress. Der Schwamm ist magnetisch. Das ist der Chemie, das ist genau gut, oder? Du kannst auch dann in die Farbe, das mit dem Schwamm, der ist magnetisch.
Vielleicht mehr in die Mitte, oder?
Ja.
Great.
Okay. We are group one. The question for us was what are the patterns of specialization in Latin American countries? To look on two things. One is what are the specific products Latin American countries are manufacturing or producing. The second question was to look into time dependencies. And we started a little bit again with the time frame which you showed at the beginning to have starting from 1820 to colonialization around 1870 up to 1980, where we see initially more or less a very slow increase, but then steeper during the time of colonialization until also independence and 1918, where the last of decade came primarily also to enforce because of the influence from the Western countries and the global economy, and then from 1990 again the increase because several of the products have been considered as more attractive, and prices of these products increased. Important or quite interesting is more or less the differentiation between the three different major global regions: the Western countries, North America, the European countries, and some of the Asian countries, Australia and New Zealand, where they are focusing mainly on highly advanced and technical products, machines and technology. The Asian countries, also several of the Asian countries, very poor. They are especially specialized on human services mainly. In the Latin American countries, primarily on the production of commodities. And this could be differentiated mainly between agricultural products, also farm products, tobacco plants, sugar, fruits, but also meat, sheep and cow. And then raw materials, minerals, and of course also oil. Specifically for Latin America, is focused on specific products. There's a high diversity, mainly because of the history, but also based on the climate of the countries. Because in the northern part of Latin America, there's a tropical climate, which allows several plants to grow, like tobacco, but also sugar and tropical fruits. Whereas other countries like Brazil, Argentina in particular, also specializing on meat production, has a lot of land being occupied by cows and of these. And then raw material, in particular, also countries on the west side, as Peru, Ecuador, but also Brazil in particular. And oil, they are also, of course, dependent on the location of the country, and in part of Venezuela or Colombia. There is a specific also with Cuba, also tobacco, sugar is part of the tropical food production. And the Latin American, Brazil, I mentioned it already, the southern belt in Brazil and Peru with raw material minerals. This is a little bit the specification of the different commodities, and the time dependency is also the scale here is that certain products have been requested and demanded by the, in particular, also Western countries. Maybe initially it was more a production of the own population, but then which raw materials and commodities have been attractive to the colonial states, and this was in particular in the past also plants the sugar production, tobacco, and some of the minerals. We go more to the recent decades. In particular, the meat production was increased significantly over the last maybe 50 years, and now is one of the world producer of meat, Argentina and Brazil. And the other maybe specific is oil. Of course, in 1870, oil was not really a topic at all, but over the last maybe 50 to 100 years, oil price increased significantly, and the use of oil and the demand of oil, and of course, like Venezuela and some other countries produce oil and are one of the biggest oil producers of the world. And this more or less caused a little bit the difference between the different states in Latin America.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. For the first group, I think overall it's a good overview, mainly about the part of the commodities. Can anyone add something on non-commodity production? So is there anything about Latin American countries there which refers to the production not only of commodities but also of other?
Can tourism be counted as non-commodities?
Yeah, tourism could be, okay, tourism like more in the more recent decades, or
What do you mean again? Sorry.
in more recent times. So I think tourism like in the 1800s was not such a big thing, but like but later, yes, I think yes, it's a point to go more towards tourism, like mainly in the Caribbean. For many countries, it's an important point. Anything about industrial production? Yeah, okay, mining would also count as commodities, like raw materials. Extraction, I think it's most prominent, yes?
I thought about rubber.
Yes, would also count as a raw material. But I think overall you're totally right that Latin America is mainly known for, and until today, very dependent on commodity exports or raw material exports. But still there have been some attempts of industrialization. This is mainly, yeah?
For example, the car production.
Yeah, for example, the car production would be an example of like Western companies going to Latin America to produce there, mainly Brazil and Argentina. But also Argentina, around 1900 until the 1950s, was a country which had a strong industrial base. They had quite a strong industrial production, for example, on trains, train lines, and different industrial products. And also overall, many Latin American countries pursued during the 1950s, so mainly in this time where it also went economically quite well, pursued industrialization processes, the so-called state-led industrialization, where they really focused on more production of industrial goods. I think most famously in Brazil, they have Embraer, which is like a producer of airplanes, which is I think the third largest or fourth largest in the world still. So there are some success stories of industrialization, but most of this collapsed afterwards. Mainly during the last decade, many of these attempts were cut back. And then there's one country I think most people know that is focusing a lot on manufacturing, which is Mexico. So the Mexican development mainly since the 1990s with the creation of NAFTA, of the agreement between Mexico and the US and Canada. They put their economic model mainly on the export of manufacturing goods of industrial products from Mexico to the US. Mainly it is US companies producing in Mexico because it is cheaper to produce there and then they export. So I think overall it stays that commodities are the most important thing, and also it was nice to show that the commodities changed throughout the times, but still different commodities are the most important export product, but there were some attempts, or still are some, also industrialization attempts in the region. One thing I wanted to clarify, the colonialization ended in 1820, so just to not get confused, in 1820 the countries became independent, so all this time here was the independence. Okay, thanks a lot. Then we go over to the second group.
So we had the question what held Latin American countries back in their economic growth, and for us it came down to quite a few points, such as, for example, the political instability that Latin America had through the years, with dictatorships and militarships, and that political instability is also linked to economic volatility, which also is connected to the way the market was oriented, the policies that were implemented by the state, because Latin America had like a big increase, big growth in the economy up to the 1980s, and in the 1980s it kind of plummeted, and yeah, those were some reasons for it. I go into the export before I give my word to somebody else. The export concentration was a big point why the Latin American economy didn't develop as good as the Western industrialized countries, because they were concentrated only on the export, and their commodities weren't diversified as much as the other ones, so they didn't have a big role in the international global market.
The colonial heritage is also a very important point. It had deep consequences, discrimination, inequality, which also tied back to then the political instability and corruption that was very frequent in Latin America, which also then pushed towards holding the back, so to say. The inequality was not only economical but also on the level of education.
Another factor we wrote down is capital flow, which is very important since we know Latin America was very export dependent, so they need cash flows from the outside, and since they didn't have a strong banking sector themselves, they were very dependent on developments, for example with the dollar, because they didn't have all the strong currencies. Which made the problem of export concentration even worse. And one reason why they didn't have strong currencies also plays back to the colonial heritage.
The economy was also accompanied by a lot of crises that add to the volatility of the country, such as a high frequency of crisis due to balance payments and extended debts, and also due to the, which was the text we had to read for the next week also, but a lot of the lack of the development also I think came down to the liberalization and dependence on the private sector. It also led to social disparitäten in terms of disparities in terms of the social part of also how the society was led to a lot of inequalities, also in terms of education, where especially in education was a big point in the text. I think that it was compared that the average years of education in Latin American countries were about like 6.3 or 6.4, whereas in Western northern countries it was about 12 point something.
Great, I think you covered everything, right? Yes, thanks a lot. Yeah, I think a very good overview. I think we will just stay with this, or do you have any questions from the other groups? Any questions of understanding? Yeah?
Will you take a photo from the three and put it on the blackboard?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Further questions? No? Because I think it's great. You did a great job showing that there. I think what is very important is to show that there are many factors that are interlinked. So different aspects are linked with other aspects, and we will go back to this later in this class. So I think for the moment we'll just stay with this. But it was a very good overview of the of the different aspects that limit economic development in Latin America. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Great job explaining. I hope we can do that as well within the time. So what I understand, our question was that how can LAC countries be grouped according to societal traits and production, and also what are the common characteristics? And what we got was that it was divided into 3 groups according to the societal traits, which are.
The first one is indigenous group, and the second was Afro-American, and the third was Euro-American.
And all of these are kind of overlapped with one another. According to the table 1.2, if you look at, if we base the group on the production types, we have 3, which is first is subsistence agriculture and mining. And these 2 can also be divided to 2 types, which is the strong and weak mining export sector.
So if you look at the table, then the strong mining export sector includes Chile, Peru, Mexico, Bolivia, Colombia, and Venezuela. And the countries without strong mining export sector could be Ecuador, Paraguay, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua. And
So the second one is like the second group would be like tropical agriculture, and the third one would just be like temperate zone agriculture. Yes. What else were we talking about again?
oh, so
Give me a second. Okay. Oh, and the second question is like, what are the common characteristics? And what we got is also if these countries that were divided to in each group, were they actually colonized by European countries before or not? And that's why they were grouped all together. And also it is based on the dependence on like types of community as well. Either were they counted as a strong mining export or weak one, for example.
yeah, so their export structure were based on natural resources and climate specialization, and which shaped the long-term development path. So that's what we found as the common parts of these countries of Latin America.
Okay, great.
Do you have anything to add on? Because to be honest, we kind of had like, we were just kind of like discussing and we didn't really get enough time to brainstorming.
No, I think it's a good overview. I think it, like the text makes up this differentiation between these 3 groups, and like I think the important thing you said, it's like all derived from the same colonial system, right? And the colonial system adapted to the geographic so to the geographic properties of this, what later turned out to be the country. So they have different focus of different types of colonial systems, more exploiting indigenous population in the Andean countries mainly, where you did mining, more exploiting like slaves in the tropical plantations, and with less with more work by the settlers themselves in the more Euro-American regions, which are mainly not suited for large plantations. One question I would have for you is, what are the implications for economic development of these 3 types of countries afterwards? So do you have an idea, like, what are the implications for the different groups?
I don't know if that has to do with like the societal factors as well. My guess would be like maybe Euro-American countries area, maybe they are doing economically better than
Why?
the rest. Because they do. Oh, but this also have strong mining. So.
What do you mean by implications?
Yeah,
like for the
in this-
future or
like
for
no,
the
like during this period of time. So I think the text makes references to when did which countries fare better during the time? So they were different periods over the past like 2 centuries, and at some points some countries fared better that they said according to the system of production and the societal system they have.
I think the different group, although they have different growth paths, but they should have some united foundation of growing or development, and so that although they are so different than each other in group way, but still that if they found the united foundation to develop them, we solve the majority of problems, I guess. So kind of. But if, for example, like one group is developed slower than others, then they should choose another strategy. For example, a bit slower and etc. So my point of view.
Yeah, I think what I think is a bit of
No, I wanted to say, I don't know if it answered your question, but I think like for example the countries with like a strong mining export had like their time period where there was a lot to mine and a lot to extract, and it does not mean that it made the country richer because of exploitation, but they just had like their peak, while at some point like you cannot mine because there's nothing to excavate, and so they had like their peak and now it's like kind of declining, while for example, I don't know, tropical plantations like fruits or like cattle, it's something that is still going strong generally. Like it's still like you can produce it, you can like recreate it, and you can still sell it, and it's not something that is just going to stop existing. Like for example, mining goods, and so I think they are going stronger than, for example, the other countries.
Okay. Yeah. I think that this is a point. I think what generally it says that the Euro-American fare better in the sense that they have the most stable demand. So they produce like products that are most stable, while tropical fruits and tropical plants have a quite strong volatility because they are mainly luxury products. So when the countries fare well, the demand declines, and also mining depends a lot on what you have to mine, like how your reserves are, but also on the world market prices, which are very unstable. And I just wanted to say that I think in some points I thought that the text was kind of problematic in the sense that it kind of suggested that the Euro-American, because it's like Europeans mainly dominating the economy, would fare better, and I think this is a kind of racist argument that the text makes, and actually it's not about that, it's about the type of plants that you're planting, and I just wanted to highlight that you should not go away with this idea of, okay, like it's by type of the population that countries do better on or worse. Actually this is not the case, and also not the point the text wants to make, but they formulate it in a kind of weird way in the text. Yeah, thanks a lot for your presentation. I think you can.
Sorry, I didn't go up there. I was just like reading the text, and I was just like, if I had something to add, I would come here, but like I didn't know.
What you guys doing? Are you that was true. Are you getting red? Getting red, really red.
Okay. I think now we are going mainly focusing on what you presented to us and looking deeper into, okay, what are the things that hinder economic development, and one thing one aspect that you mentioned was the volatility of growth in Latin America. One can see when one compares the economic growth and the volatility of economic growth in Latin America, that it is much more volatile than in other countries. So there's much higher upswings and downswings, and it's less stable than in other countries. One can see here that the output is really quite volatile over the past 50 years. With high periods of quite high growth, but also periods of strong declines, several periods of declines. So you had like in the last decade, you have like really declines of -0, but then also in the early 2000s, you have declines of like economic shrinkage, and also in the financial crisis. So there were several periods where you really had negative growth rates, which rarely happens in, let's say, European countries. Or now more, but normally did not happen so much. So actually the idea was to do another group work. I think we don't have so much time. Perhaps we'll do a quick group work, like always 3 persons together, and there are 5 questions, and you don't have to do a poster, you just do afterwards a quicker round of presenting your results. So it's mainly about the topic of volatility and economic crisis. The first group, which would be you 3 here, would have the task to how can you calculate volatility, and to give an example with numbers, like how to do it, like more statistical task. Then the second group, which is there around the corner, is on why Latin American volatility exceeds the norm. Also for all these tasks, like the perhaps not the first, but for the other tasks, all the information is in the text, so you can take it from there. The third group is what the main determinants of this volatility are. That fits well because you mainly just worked on it now, so you can elaborate a bit more on what are the drivers of volatility, both internal and external factors, which is until you? Yeah, okay. The next group focuses on how volatility hampers development. So why is volatility bad for economic development? And the final groups focuses a bit more on the crises in Latin America, which were asking what are the different types of crises that have in common in Latin America. The group referred to it shortly, so they were like, different types of crises. It's also written in the text that you read, what are the types of crises and how do they differ, and which have a higher prevalence in Latin America. Okay, I would say, due to the time that we have, we'll go for like 10 minutes for each group, and then we'll do a round of presenting your results. Okay?
Could you divide it once again?
Okay, so it's a 3 until person with the bluish pullover, then until you, can you raise your hand? Yeah, until there, then there with the gray pullover, yeah. Then you 3, and then the 4 of you on the side of the last group.
have to answer the question. We have currency and banking.
Yeah, it's risky, and also maybe you don't even have enough income to save it. So like the bad period, you're just gonna have to spend it all, right? And in a good period, you think like, oh, maybe it's not gonna be like that again, and so you continue spending.
But it's also makes investment not attractive. Like when you rather invest in something stable. It makes less
It makes what?
It's like volatility of arbitrage. An increased volatility and the predictability of the objects.
So first currency pair, okay, so we have like
Is like volatility related to currency compared to
It's on the same. It's on the same.
Well, let's assume it can change really quickly.
But like it's not used in the same way. For example, I remember like political volatility, maybe generally
more so it's used in like different terms.
I would say so.
Yeah, I think instability means it's kind of like more negative. It means that you are unstable. While volatility means that you can be stable, and then if you're even stable, then you can be stable again. Which is
More like fluctuation.
yeah.
The on-time rate. Like they couldn't pay interest. I don't get it.
I think this one is more related to like investment non-remunerative, because if it's really volatile, then like if financial crisis happen, like then they won't be able to like solve those problems quickly, because like they aren't able to expect what will happen after trying to solve those problems. Maybe that's related to investment non-remunerative, like you just said.
Yeah, and then they have to borrow.
What else?
And then what were you saying? They have to borrow again? So they have to
You have to borrow, and then the export is
So keep borrowing and then
Oder auch in den USA. Wir haben ja auch
I'm like, this is my first economy course. I did not study economy, so I went to studies, and so I was just like thrown into this shit of, I don't know. Yesterday I spent like 2.5 hours and read only like 8 pages of the text tomorrow because I had to research all the like basics because I'm not from economy, and so it was like, oh my god.
Yeah,
But you're good, right?
Thank you. I have a raw understanding of like where I was a vague understanding of economy, and I'm just like.
then they have clothes,
everything.
You too.
But I think there are not
Yeah.
Start as string of similar outcome for other
Okay, like development
But I
and
look at the second part, so basically if there's a bank one, so things have to be closed. But if there are no bank
or they're
ones,
merging or
they have to be
Why
closed
does
by other financial institutions. Okay, so that was string.
yeah, so if one of them does it, all of them do it, then everybody's like,
investments
yeah.
So
and the economy
domino effect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What were you trying to say?
that with the volatility, with increased volatility, the investment is increased, and therefore investments, economy is decreasing, and therefore the economy is less reinforced,
Oh, like
supported.
there's being like hindered the growth, right?
Yeah, or just not support, like investment is support. Like you need money, I give you money, that's my investment.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're too volatile, I don't give you money.
Yeah,
And therefore you don't grow.
because people fear that they may lose money, lose investment.
So I don't give you money. And also the prices. Like it's hard to plan. You know.
Yeah, hard to
If there's no volatility, it's much easier. You can program perfectly for the next amount of years. Volatility this way is much harder.
Maybe hard to plan for a long-term growth.
Exactly. Long-term plan. Therefore, development is
Yeah, development.
like it's easier to grow if you have a long-term plan.
Maybe development only short-sighted.
So.
No, I was thinking like not only like economically, but society, in society, it might. It's like
So that means
it goes
because
hand
of
in hand,
these,
right?
that's why they
And
have
also
to
think about like maybe there's
high
no
mortality rates.
Yeah.
in
And
central
therefore,
government
yeah, so people, that's
so
really good.
people are much more focused on thinking about like themselves.
And they might leave the country, like if they're educated a bit, yeah, right, I think that's a good point.
Leave country and like criminals.
So the people that have something to offer, they leave it. The people that don't, but they stay, they become criminals.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Isn't there like
I think talent drive.
like China something?
China something what's
No,
that?
like there is like
In that category,
there's a concept
also,
which says that like the best educated people in the country leave the country because there's like no
Italian
see
talent brain, China talent.
Is it a brain drain or something?
brain drain. Teamwork.
Teamwork, yeah, we did it.
Good question.
I think also technology is less developed without like it's a consequence of brain drain and investment in technology stagnation, but development of technology stagnation.
And that without technological development, like production may like not improve.
Exactly. So no development.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I think we're a really good team.
Okay, one more minute.
I think we could also add political instability.
Yeah.
Like if things don't go well,
And also between
which is also part of the whole volatility. Like it's harder to plan every second plan.
fast approach, it will not make a difference in terms of payoff.
I think where did you write about trust? Like within the migration and stuff?
Yeah, leave country.
Social trust. Yeah, also less cooperation maybe we could answer.
There's cooperation and what?
Like between people. Like if I trust you, I'm gonna work with you.
Sure about that. Less because I feel like
Less community cooperation, sorry.
I feel like there is less stress on the government and the economy, but I wouldn't say that there's like less cooperation. Maybe there's like more the focus on the individual situation, but like people still like work together because it's not them against themselves, it's sometimes them against the government.
Yes, but it's also integrated subgroups, you know. I think
like
you think
that
about something
depends
else.
on-
I think where there's a lot of cooperation, but volatility in of itself
Yeah.
makes the population increase.
Definitely, but
So,
we're talking about
but we're talking about the question is how does volatility so in general, in South America there was more population.
Okay. Please get to an end.
But no, we can
And yes, okay. Okay, go. Okay, so okay, let's
like a
start with
tendency
the
to less
first group.
conservation, but based on the like set context.
Okay. Okay, please go and please keep it short. Like I think 2 minutes per group to present the main results.
Okay, so our topic was how to calculate the volatility. Sorry. So our topic was how to calculate the volatility, and it's basically the standard deviation from like a typical point of number we're searching. In general, it's in our text or in the text we read, it's like for example GDP or growth rate, and then you can calculate the volatility, so it shows which like what's the difference between ja, also die Unterschiede zwischen dem höchsten und dem niedrigsten Punkt, so you can calculate this with the volatility, and it shows what kind of difference during the time period is coming up. Yeah.
Maybe two additional points is that you could more or less look on the absolute values and on the per capita values, because this is of course a different, and it's difficult to say what is better. It's probably dependent on the question, what is meant. And the second one is that you can look on the volatility in comparison to certain other region. As you can look on the global basis in comparison. You could look on, I think it's made here also with different numbers, on the rest of the world without Latin America, with Latin America, or on the Western world, which is defined as Canada, USA, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia.
Okay.
You get different numbers, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So I hope everyone got it right that volatility is mainly the standard deviation, so the deviation from the mean of growth rate. Great. Then next, why?
Can you maybe, because I don't have economy, main subject, can you maybe show a little example of how to do that?
How
like
to
calculate that with the graph that you showed us? Or maybe you can show me afterwards as well.
Okay, no, but perhaps it's useful. So what you do is that you calculate the mean. Like if you have numbers, then you calculate. I don't know. Let's try it like this. So I don't know. It's like 5, 10, 8. Then we calculate this. The mean would be 7.5. And then you have like the standard like the deviation from the mean. So the deviation here would be 2.5. Here it would be 2.5. It would be 0.5 and 0.5. And then you can sum this up. So here it would be 6 divided by 4. So the volatility would be 1.5 in this thing. Yeah? Yeah?
What's the numbers on the right?
This is the deviation from the mean.
Ah.
So this is like, yeah. Okay. Great. Then, okay, why do we have like, so the volatility means how much difference is there between the values that you observe, basically. If there's a higher or lower difference between the values of the different years. Okay, then you, please.
Yes, we have the question why Latin American countries exceed the norm. So we came up with the main reason of dependencies to Western or global North countries. Political crisis, for example, dictatorships, monetary crisis, so dependencies on the dollar, for example, or we had a the great euro crisis or global crisis. So we have the cycle of growth. Growth starts, crisis hits, and growth stops. No investment in education. For example, to monetary crisis or dependencies is when Latin American countries lending money from the US, for example, by very little interest rates, and USA increases, then the interest rate, Latin American countries' lack of paying back those rates. Yes.
Yeah.
I would add to the political instability, especially the dependence on the USA, which also implemented policies and suggested policies to Latin America, but also like Latin America, we had so much political instability in the region itself, the different countries such as dictatorships and that stuff that also like next to international global crisis intensified the volatility because also no reassurance also in terms of social justice and the stuff that goes into that thing, and also he said education already that was not really invested in there, and
Okay, I think your task went a bit in the same direction, right?
Yeah.
What do you
So
have
we
to
have we have internal and external examples. For the external factors, we have the dependency of other countries, depending of the outside demand, and also the poverty because of the exploitation from other countries. And for internal factors, we had also the instability of the currency, and that the currencies are based on other currencies, and that there's no diversity of the economy, and they are just focusing, or many countries are just focusing on some industries, and also the political instability.
Okay, great. I think like the one question to both groups, like how does this dependence translate? Like, for example, you both mentioned the foreign dependence from other countries. How does this translate into volatility? So what is the mechanism? Yeah?
So if you're dependent on outside demand, if outside demand rises drastically, your economy does very well. But if outside demand doesn't exist anymore, your economy collapses.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think you don't have everything in your head, so you're dependent on others, and they are like, they have to, you don't have,
So adding to the dependency, if there is a crisis in the external country, so it links at the same time to the Latin American country. So it's dependent.
Okay, I have a question when it comes to like programs from World Bank and EVF, etc. Are they truly beneficial because they say, okay, we lend you money and then you can pay back from like low interest rates, but also there's like dependency from these organizations. And is there some evidence, not only in Latin America when it comes to African countries, etc.? Is there like, are they truly beneficial, or is it just another way to get like influence in the countries?
Good question. I think I would postpone this question because it's a very big question. I think you talk about Washington Consensus next week, right? I know, tomorrow. So perhaps this is more like you can pose the question again there. Yeah, but I think it also does not, like answering with regard to volatility, I think this question that your politics are determined by external factors, which could be demand from other countries, but could also be rules from the IMF, might lead to higher volatility because you cannot adapt as much as you would like to your economic circumstances. Yeah?
Yeah, what I wanted to add is also that if you're dependent on other currencies, you lack the mechanisms to fight volatility. So for example, if you have volatility in a Western country, for example in Europe, you have the European Central Bank fighting the volatility, but if you're a Latin American country and you have a crisis because of the dollar, then the USA won't adjust their interest rates to help you. So you don't have the mechanisms to fight volatility.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And then we go to the next step, and how does this volatility hamper economic development?
So we mainly talked about if there's volatility, then investments won't be attractive to Latin American countries, and because it's not predictable, because they can't really talk about the future value of these countries, so there won't be enough investments for these countries to develop, because in order to develop, we actually thought that some investments outside of the countries are needed, but then without those investments, it would be very hard for those countries to develop. And also, we talked about it's hard to plan for the long-term growth because we don't know what would happen in the future. We can't expect. So they can only plan for short-sighted economic development, which would lead to a more short-term and hinders the whole development of the countries themselves. And also, we also talked about the social trust with volatility, the social trust would decrease, it would hinder social trust, and people would leave those countries of Latin America because they would actually want to move to other countries without any volatility and with some places where they can find stability. And we've also talked about some brain drains that could happen and less cooperation that could happen within the Latin American countries. And we thought that all the factors would hamper development of Latin American countries.
Yeah, great. I think it's a great point. The difficulty of planning, and actually it increases uncertainty extremely, and high uncertainty is always bad for investment, both for private investment but also for government investment, because you cannot have government programs running for several years when you don't know how much money you will earn during these years. Great. And then we go to the final group, going towards the question of the crisis.
We have 3 types of crises that have been common in Latin America. First one is currency crisis. For example, the currency is devalued compared to the US one, and that could also impact the export earnings to be reduced. The second one is, and also for currency, they've also, the second one would be external debt. So the inability to pay their external obligated interest or principal. I'm not sure what principal was. I think it's interest. And then the country themselves will keep borrowing until the export price could be collapsed. Right?
Okay.
And then the third one is banking crisis. So this is domino effect of bank runs. So if there are bank runs, then it can lead to either closure, merging, or takeover, or even government assistance. Yes, so that's the 3 types of the crisis.
Okay, yeah, great. I think, did you get what the balance of payment crisis mean? Perhaps in other words, balance of payment crisis means when you can't to buy like to import things from other countries, you need money, and this money is mainly, or you need external currencies. Like when you want to buy from the US, you need US dollars to buy the goods, and this money has to flow in from imports. So you need imports should be at the same level as exports you need exports to finance your imports. And what happens in many Latin American countries are balance of payment crises when you have a sudden fall in commodity prices due to the volatility, then your earnings are lower than what you have to spend. And this leads to a shortage of money, and this shortage of money also evaporates the trust in your currency. So this is also how balance of payment crises are often linked to currency crisis, because the central bank simply shows, okay, we don't have any dollar reserves anymore, and then the currency loses its trust. So it's mainly that you have to finance what you buy by selling exports. And this happened quite often in Latin America. Great, we are already nearly out of time, or basically we are out of time. Thanks a lot for your presentations. You still have something to say?
I think we also did a little bit about the impact of the trade.
Yeah, great.
That the terms of trade, for example, during the war, the mortality was super high, like I think 16% or something, and then because of that, they had to stop imports, and then suddenly the crisis comes. So basically, the trade balance and the terms of trade were what caused the crises, the different crises that we had.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for the addition, and sorry for interrupting before. So I think with this we are out of time. What I should tell you is that you all should put yourself on the list for presentations for the upcoming sessions. So please fill in if you haven't done yet.
There are two papers, right? The one that we have to choose for the next.
No, this is for, I think this is for
group presentations.
For the group presentations. This is not for next week. I come for next session.
Excuse me?
You can
Yeah.
check it
Can
on
you find this only in the deck?
You can ask someone to send it, or you write an email to Natalie.
I have to go straight to
Where can I find it?
The email? I think you can find it on the webpage. Yeah. And one more thing is for tomorrow. There's 2 readings. I don't know if you already are into the 2 groups. I think so. Yes? Okay. Those who are not yet should get in one of the groups. And the first one reads text on structuralism, state-led development, and the second one on Washington consensus and liberalization. And I hope that turns it refers more to the IMF and World Bank questions tomorrow. So thanks a lot for And if I counted correctly, one person didn't have his or her name on the list. If someone's missing, please
You can choose your topic here. Yeah. And for tomorrow. No, not for tomorrow. For tomorrow, you also choose.